Is this legit? I'm Sophie, tech marketer and social scientist. When I'm not advising tech startups on their marketing strategies, I'm helping protect everyday folks from online threats.
I'm Chris, a marketer with a background in both agencies and tech companies.
This week on Is This Legit?
And we tell our loved ones, hey, this is a scam that's going around. Not to make anybody paranoid, but just to make sure that they don't get caught.
Normalize talking about scams.
Yeah.
Sophie,
Yes, Chris.
I have a question.
I'm listening.
Be honest. Have you ever been caught by a phishing email?
No. I'm being really honest. I have gotten a ton. And so far, cross my fingers, I have not been caught.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm actually impressed, and I have to admit that I have not been so vigilant. Maybe
I am a paranoid person.
even when you were a kid.
Yes.
I was definitely caught by a chain letter. When I had my first computer, I was like, I don't know, 8 years old. And then some of my classmates were sending these emails like, forward this email to 7 other people or you're going to have 7 years of bad luck. And I was like, well, I have nothing to lose by sending this, but I have a lot to win, to be precise, 7 years of not bad luck. So I've done that. I've definitely done that.
To be honest, I have received those chain emails and I don't remember what I ever did with them. So technically it's possible, but I do remember very early on being very suspicious. My dad, lovely, lovely, lovely man, is very paranoid about this kind of stuff. And so he taught me really young to be suspicious of people. I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but
Wise man, wise man. Dear listeners, as you may guess, in today's episode, we will be discussing scammy emails and phishing tactics, phishing emails, anything related to phishing scams. So without further ado, let's get into this.
okay. So, the internet brought a whole new accessibility to scammers to reach their people. Ponzi schemes existed before the internet, so that's not new. Humans be humaning and
Scams be scamming.
yeah, scams be scamming. But the internet definitely gave an extra access point to more and more people. So, okay, super quick rundown on chronologically how the history of scams evolved over time, starting when internet started. So we're not looking at scams from before. We're looking at email scams very specifically. The first email scams that we started seeing were started pre-internet. They were via mail and whatnot, but they did move to the internet and email by the 1990s. And those were our typical Nigerian prince inheritance scams. You have a family member, blah, blah, blah. Yes.
In that
Yes. They still exist. As we, both of us, heard from a friend this week, they still exist.
that was a Hong Kong
Sure.
cousin, a rich uncle from Hong Kong.
Asian cousin to South American, there's no relation. Yeah, no, it was great. But point is, they still exist. So the distant royalty cousin family member inheritance scam started in the 80s and 90s by mail and then moved to email. So those were some of the first ones.
I'm still hoping low-key that a real uncle in Hong Kong or Nigeria will reach out to me and be like, yes, I have 50 million for you. I'm like, you know what? Yes. I just want to retire early.
All right. All right. So next came the fake lottery scams. So those were also in the early 90s up until the 2000s. They are still happening. They are harder to spot some of them, but I have personally seen very, very bad ones that are still in email. I see them coming in like constantly, like not to my own email, but um, to other users of Fishery. So like, yeah, they're still happening, but the fake lottery scams are kind of the next iteration of that. And then once banking started becoming more prevalent on the internet, the banking impersonation scams. So what those are is that the scammers are pretending to be your bank. Those started happening in the mid 90s. They are very, very active today. They still happen. They have just kind of evolved because of online banking and because of other kinds of methods that can be used and whatnot. Now everybody's online, so it's kind of worse. Um, but those already started in like the mid 90s, which is crazy
Wild.
because we think of those as very now, but they've been around for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. And to think of like how prevalent these are, my Finnish online bank, every time I opened the app, it it used to have like this notification that would like disappear and come back, but now it's like just all the time on there. Like, hey, if you receive a suspicious message from the bank asking for your like credentials, do not respond. And they just like kept it now. They're not even removing it anymore.
Same, same. So I see the same. I see the same with any kind of payment providers or whatnot. Mobile pay, those kinds. Um, so yeah. Um, the next one that I think people do still remember are very much in the like popular lore and whatnot are the tech support scams. Your Microsoft, account has been compromised. Somebody's in your thing. So those started in the early 2000s. So after bank impersonation started, they're still happening, but they're not necessarily happening by email as much anymore. They're happening by phone calls. And so you'll get a phone call from Microsoft saying that, they've seen that your computer is compromised. And then they'll try to get you to, like, I don't know, do whatever. So tech support scams. Um, so those are still happening, but I think people are a bit more aware of those. Um, and
Is it like your computer has been compromised? Give me your password.
yeah,
Let me take a look what's
yeah,
happening in there, or
yeah, yeah,
and then they actually
yeah.
hack your computer. Okay.
They might not even hack your computer. They'll end up doing is like, oh, well, now that I gave you tech support, please pay me. And here's, give me your credit card number so that you could pay for the support. There's those. There's two. There's the Microsoft.
I've like yeah.
I'm from Microsoft and, I will help you fix your computer and whatever that is. Or I will help you fix your computer. Click on this, click on that. Okay, we fixed the thing. Nothing happened. They never, okay, now you need to pay me $50 because I helped you with your tech support.
Oh, that's actually crazy. I've not heard of that one. I always thought they just like hack like remotely, but that's actually
No,
wonderful.
low tech. They call you and they're just like, I fixed your computer. Pay me now. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I could
people
see
do
how
it.
that.
They're
And I could see how people would fall for that.
Okay, so in the mid 2000s, what started happening was more of the okay. So now we're going to get into the jargon, but corporate credential phishing, okay, credential harvesting. So what that is, this is time for a definition right now. Credential harvesting really just means that the scammers are trying to get your login information to whatever, right? And they want to get your login information so that it's easier for them to then log into your shit and then get access to systems. That's what credential
As
harvesting
in
means.
like work related stuff, right?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
or not. No, credential harvesting could be any,
Yeah, but
right?
when we talk about like corporate.
Yes, the corporate ones is because they want to have access to your corporate systems. So whether it's your email, whether it's the actual, business systems or whatever. So that started in the mid 2000s and it is still one of the like strongest reasons why they're trying to get in. Still trying to get access for different reasons, but still trying to get access to your corporate credentials. But credential harvesting in general can be any system. Anywhere where you have a username and a password, those are credentials and those are subject to potentially being breached. So those
Like
started.
Facebook Business Manager account.
Oh yes, that's whole other situation that we talked about last week. If you haven't listened, listen in. Scammers are trying to get into your Facebook ad account so that they can run fake ads and put it on your credit card. So yay, thanks. um, so
Stay vigilant.
yeah. So because in the mid 2000s now, suddenly people had their business not in their own servers. It was starting to be, you could actually access things. And so that's how that started becoming more prevalent. But it is still really strong because there's a lot that you can find in there. Um, Next started coming more of the fake job offer emails. So those came up either on actual job board websites. They are worse during economic recessions, obviously.
Like now.
Like now. So be really careful. We're seeing a lot of them. Again, last week's episode, we were talking about some of those, but those happen for a bunch of different reasons. Why they're so sneaky is because who would want to give me something if they're trying to scam me? It feels weird so that people are not suspicious. Now, the problem is that is still a very old tactic. I give you something so that you trust me, and then I scam you out of something later, right? So it brings people's guard down. So those started like obviously way long ago, but these kinds of like email ones are more recent to the 2000s until now, but they are very prevalent now.
And they're getting better and better. The tech, the emails, like especially with LinkedIn as well, they look up the profiles. You can see that, yes, indeed, that person works at a company that they're reaching out from. And then, yeah, it's scary out there.
It is, yeah. Crypto scams started probably about, a dozen years ago with the beginning of crypto, beginning of Bitcoin and whatnot. They are very particular kind of investment scam. Usually it is, so not all crypto is scammy, just for the record, but it makes it easier to hide that it's a scam versus normal, like traditional currencies. So investment scams have always happened, right? We all know Ponzi schemes. Like, here's a great return on investment. Give me this much, and then like you'll see your money going up. Now people are using like crypto to replace the traditional currency banking system in similar ways. And then there's also like the actual fake currencies that are, in crypto. But that's like that
Oh, like the
separate.
pump and dump schemes?
Yeah. Yeah, kind of.
Mhm.
It's like, give me that money here. I'm seeing that, you're building and then when you want to take it out, suddenly I'm ghost. I'm not there. So like
Yeah.
there's no actual investment being made. Those are usually Ponzi, right? And so there's those, but then there's also like actual fake crypto that's also coming up. But yeah, those are kind of different ways of doing it.
That actually happened with McDonald's recently. Their social media accounts got hacked.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody used a pump and dump scheme or like a fake crypto scheme that they were advertising on their Instagram stories. And a bunch of people actually fell for it until they got their Instagram account back. But McDonald's also never addressed that happened.
I didn't see that.
Just very wild because they have like millions of followers.
Mhm.
So
yeah, I obviously have not looked into the actual details, and they haven't talked about it much. But that's a mix between like credential harvesting. Most likely, somebody got access to their Meta account or something, and they were able to go in and change stuff. It's not really hard. I mean, in the 2016 election, Trump's Twitter account got like breached, or
really?
whatever else. Yeah. Like it's not very hard to like get into people's social media accounts. They reuse their passwords. Anyway, later on, I'll give some how to not get your social media account breached. Like there are things you should do. They're not very hard things to do, but anyway. So later on, and this is a very still typical kind of pretext or whatnot to get people to give you money, charity, or on mission driven stuff. Obviously, whenever there's a crisis, those kind of they they're more prevalent. And so whenever there's like a hurricane or whatever, you need to be kind of really careful and see like, okay, is this a reliable foundation or is this just people trying to scam out of money? It's not always the case, but unfortunately, they take advantage of it.
I actually feel really bad about it because recently my Instagram has been flooded with ads for different funds. And there are like different, angles, like whether it's helping children or donating for like animals and like crisis areas. And I look at these and I really want to help. But at the same time, I'm so sus about everything I see online. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I hated that we live in an era where I'm like, I don't know if this image of a cat is generated by AI or is it real? I don't know. I've never heard of this fund. I can't I don't want to donate.
Yeah.
It's
And
scary.
it's hard because it makes it so much harder for the legit people that are actually trying to like help and that actually do nonprofit. In those cases, honestly, grassroots movements, when you actually like know people that have started things, those are probably the safest to kind of put your nonprofits time and effort and money into. But it's tough.
Oh, another episode idea.
What?
Well, are charity funds legit?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, oh my God, that's like a five-parter. Okay. A few more left until now. Basically, started coming in a bit more in the like late 2000s. They're not as prevalent, but they're still kind of happening, or the more government impersonations. So those are, government entities. I would probably like put in any kind of like tax agency, lump into those as well. Most governments have some kind of online digital presence, and of course like those are lumped into the authority impersonation. So scammers use the presence of kind of authority, police, IRS, tax agency, your boss, somebody of authority, somebody of power. They'll use that as a way to get you to pressure you into doing something. So of course government ones are really, they're a sure bet to, if the government sends you an email, you're like, oh shit, and you kind of act on it really quickly. Those are still happening, obviously, but yeah. Next, timeline wise, so chronologically, because of the rise in online shopping and e-commerce, were more of the package delivery scams, and those we're still seeing constantly. So those can be Amazon, literally, like fake Amazon. Um, I heard like my parents got like literal calls, like voicemails from quote unquote Amazon, obviously not.
Scary.
Yeah, saying, hey, your package is stuck in customs, call us back or go to this link. Luckily, I was literally there when they got it. And I was like, no, that's a scam. And I'm like, just delete it. You shouldn't be worried if you get a call and it's voicemail. Just if you get the call and you answer, just stop the call. Don't say
Don't
anything.
react.
It's
Yeah.
fine. They're not going to get into your phone just because you answered the phone. It's not that serious. Well, I can understand if you understand how it works. Like, it could be scary to just answer the phone. But if it's a voicemail, just like delete it. It's gone. Like, they can't hack into your phone because they left you a voicemail. It's not that easy. Actually, I was speaking to a few test users for Fishery, and they like to use the scam analysis or phishing analysis to make sure that the email is actually the post service, UPS, FedEx, whatever. They're like, I ordered a thing, but I forgot. And now I know this is a thing. I know that they're using these services and they're so good. So they just have that sanity check. Oh, yeah, okay, it is actually safe because they are so common. They come by text message, they come by voicemail, they come by email. It's freaking constant. Even before then, e-commerce is a way, and it's global, and like that's how most people shop now. People expect a package. They're going to click on the link. Sometimes they forget they ordered a thing. It's been a few months and it was delayed, right? So those are still very, very active. Um, Obviously in the 2000 kind of, piggybacking on the kind of, charity or disaster or whatever current situation is, COVID scams, obviously during, early COVID and still until now, happened quite a bit, whether it was,
Oh,
you know,
really? Still
yeah, yeah, yeah.
now.
Yeah, they're still
COVID is
happening.
still a thing.
It is. And the thing is, like, it's like a lot of, okay, some of it is fear mongering, but some people still get COVID. So they're less. but they're still there. And it's just a matter of time before it's another thing, right? It's another kind of mini epidemic or whatever that's going to come up, and then they're going to use that as an excuse.
Oh, I feel like in the US, that's going to be such a thing after the new president-elect comes into power.
Yeah.
With the people that he's selecting to be in his office, I think that's going to be very rampant.
You have to be really careful. There's a lot of these. So the authority impersonation, right? Like those are super prevalent. So those authority impersonations happen constantly, believe it or not. So our teeny tiny little company of like no employees almost, we got our first CEO impersonation like 2 days ago, where it got caught because it was sent to an email that doesn't exist. But basically, they found one of our interns on LinkedIn. They just used her first name at fishery.com, and they sent an emails from me saying that, hey, I need to talk about something. Can you reply or whatever? Like we need to discuss a project.
Wow. You know you've made it when you're being targeted by a fake CEO scam.
I mean, I don't know.
That's a big compliment to you.
It happens when you start. I think the minute that you get any kind of like employee that's linked to your LinkedIn, it's going to happen.
Yeah,
So-
I have somebody on LinkedIn with the CEO title.
Yes, immediately. And so I don't think necessarily like it's that, but they do use your LinkedIn information to see what the relationships are. I do have to say, side note, like targeting a cybersecurity company with these scams, I just think is so freaking hilarious. Like this is just like extra like humor for the office now. Like thanks for the laughs, I guess. But the latest iteration of how these email scams have been going are the more advanced spear phishing. I think now we're due for definition. What is the difference between a scam and a phish? Do you know?
A fish to me from some research that I've done, it feels a little bit more like you have like a hook, like a bait or something, right?
And
You
before
leave like
what?
maybe some emotional manipulation.
No.
Maybe there's
Okay.
no. Okay.
So it's
All
so
right.
simple. It's so simple, Chris. So simple. A fish just has a link to click, or an attachment to click, or a phone number to call.
So that's the bait.
That's it.
Gotcha.
So it's super simple, right? If there's something for you to click on or to open, then that's sufficient. So spear phishing, there's different types. There's bulk phishing. So those are just the widespread. I'm sending the shit lottery things that not everybody.
Impersonalized, right?
Yes, impersonalized. Spear phishing is super hyper targeted. So they'll, find data on you, they'll use your name, those kinds of things. Those obviously work better. As we know, as marketers, if you personalize your outreach, it works better, but it does require more work.
Which is not that hard these days because
No.
there are so many data points about all of us online. So just a point to you as well, please, I don't know, when possible, don't disclose your location, where where you're hanging out on the daily, all these things, like just don't.
Yeah. And so, those different types of phishing, those I would say are kind of like the major two that probably people will encounter in terms of phishing. But the advanced stuff that we're seeing now is that they're using data mining. They're using the same, to be honest, the new tech mover slash this weekend. The companies that are like, hey, we can find all this awesome information so that you can help connect with people, that you don't actually have to like do the work yourself and find your points in common. Well, scammers are using
Today at Flush, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like all those like lovely sales tools that help you like understand your potential customers and prospects, which are great for like, whatever the job is, are actually like also being used for scammers, right? And so unfortunately, that's still, if you can use it for good, somebody will use it for bad. As simple as that. Unfortunately, with these advanced spear phishing, people are also now, or people, not people, scammers are using AI, of course. They're using AI to make sure that their emails are not suspicious. So there's not a shit ton of bad English and typos. They're using AI to, no joke, mimic people's voices, mimic people's like actual video. So another reason why you don't want to put your kids online, because then there's too much of their actual person on the internet and it can become really scary. We're
Yeah.
seeing
You can never be too paranoid about that stuff,
no, we're
especially these
seeing
days.
yeah. So we're seeing a ton of these extortion scams that are using either your kids, your grandkids, whatever, their voice, their picture, their video, and they're using AI to recreate part of that so that when, hey, grandma, I'm in this country, I'm stuck, I need you to get me. Those are extortion scams, right? But it's not them. So that is happening, and it's happening a lot. And it is right now this advanced spear phishing in general, not just the AI stuff, but that is the biggest threat to companies right now. And it is definitely a huge threat for normal people as well. So that is the chronology of scams, email scams, from Nigerian prince to AI.
That's crazy. Just be paranoid. Also, to the point of being paranoid, I don't know if you guys have seen, but who remembers Pokemon Go, a big sensation in 2016?
Sweet.
Yes. So I read news that now, so at its peak, they had 232 million active players. That's a shit ton of data that all consented to their data being used. So guess what? Um, this company is now building an AI model that can navigate the real world based on all the data points that these 200 plus million players were giving away voluntarily back in the days. Because I guess that game was free, right? So
Mm,
when something is free, you're very likely paying with
Nothing
data.
is free. Nothing is free. Remember that. If something is free, find out how they monetize.
You are the product.
You are the product if something is free. Did you find how many of those millions of users were minors?
No, the news snippet
Didn't
that I
say
read does not say anything.
yet. I'm sure we'll find out at one point. A lot of
Yeah.
kids use or play Pokemon Go. So we don't see it as social media, and with when it comes to kids and teens, and it's like, oh, make sure your kids are not too much on social because it'll their mental health and online bullying and blah blah. These games that are tracking where they are and their locations can be breached. So just saying, it's not all about the traditional social media. um
Mhm.
Scary.
It is. But thank you so much for the historical kind of like run through of all these like different scams and how they've evolved. So I want to talk about some of the bigger scams and some of the more interesting scams related to either emails or phishing. So I have a couple of stories for you. Guess when the first spam mail came about?
No clue. Probably the minute the internet, like, an email existed.
Yes, you're so right. And that was in the 1970s. The spam mail has been around. It's grandpa now. Um, so yes, the first unsolicited mass spam mail happened right after the invention of email. So electronic mail was still part of the Department of Defense's ARPANET project. So that's the predecessor to the internet. And there was a programmer, Gary Thurek, who sent an unsolicited mass email to approximately 400 people. And he was advertising the demonstration of a new computer for his company. And that really upset users because the ARPANET was a research driven network, and users were accustomed to using it for academic or professional collaboration. So, this commercial advertisement really disrupted the expected norms of communication. And he also did not obviously have explicit permission to contact all of these individuals. So, that violated the informal etiquette of the network at the time. And even though it wasn't like a scam, it was a precursor to what would later be recognized as spam. So unsolicited mass distributed emails sent without the recipient's consent. And the guy Gary, he has fully embraced his title as the father of spam. So, kudos to him in later years. And he's even expressed pride in his role in this historical moment. So,
Does he still send spam emails?
I hope not. But you know what? He's, live your life king, embrace your fumble, epic spam energy.
Love it.
I also have a very early example of phishing, which is honestly epic. It's called AO Hell. So, if you guys are maybe, I don't know, I think a lot of our listeners, maybe they don't know AOL because I feel like it's such a US specific kind of thing.
I don't know.
Also very like 90s. Do you know AOL?
Yes, of course we had AOL.
America Online. All right. So in the mid to late 1990s, I guess AOL was an internet provider, but it was also kind of a chat system or application. Like you had these like chat rooms where you could like meet strangers and you all had these like anonymized kind of names. And as far as I've understood, you had to, in order to be on AOL, you had to like actually create this account and you had to link it to your credit card because, being online cost by, I don't know, the hour or the minute back in the days. So, what is AOL? AOL was a Windows application developed in 1994 by a teenager. I think he was like 17. He was known as the Chronic. And this guy is very fascinating because he actually published a paper very elaborately describing the scam and the app that he built. So that app, this Windows application, was designed to exploit vulnerabilities in America Online or AOL. So it provided users with tools to disrupt the service and manipulate other users. So what the Chronic and his like friend of teenage delinquents did, they would actually create these like fake accounts, linking them to fake credit cards, and they would go to these different chat rooms, particularly to the new member lounge chat rooms. These rooms were designed for people for that were like new subscribers. So they were placed during their first few logins there, and many people occupying these areas had only a few minutes of experience online, like ever. That was their like first encounter with the internet. So they were some of the most vulnerable targets an attacker could want. So what they would originally do, they did it manually. They would like just message these people. They would create these like fake kind of like names impersonating AOL, I don't know, security or TOS accounts or whatever. They would use this like, ask them to like for sharing their like passwords and credit card numbers. But this application that was then used to like automate it, so it would actually mass like spam message them with bait messages with users telling them they need to verify their passports or billing information, and they message as many as possible before the accounts got shut down by AOL. And these apps actually were able to like retrieve the messaging history. So even though these accounts got shut down, they then had access to a ton of these passwords and billing details then. And I think they use these like billing or credit card information for like other platforms where they actually legitimately needed to like put in like billing information. So yeah, the app also included a mail bomb script, which would rapidly send emails to a user's inbox until it was full. Because back in the days, they had, even these days, you have limits to your inbox, but you barely like reach them. But yeah, it's very fascinating, and I found this like research paper by the guy. He's apparently also very active. Like there's an email attached, so I've seen people on Reddit being like, "Yeah, I emailed this guy and asked him like why fish or phishing."
Mhm.
And apparently back in the days, it was just kind of this like internet lingo where you would like replace some letters to make it sound a bit like cooler. You have like cool, they would like change the spelling from like COOL to KEWL. So again, like phishing, they just replaced the F with a PH. And yeah, that research paper is like really interesting because he actually includes the schema of how the scam works and like some of the screenshots of the tool in the 90s. So it's really interesting. And what essentially began as a scheme by rebellious teenagers to steal passwords evolved into one of the top computer security threats affecting people, corporations, and governments.
So I actually checked, and AOL was available worldwide.
Ah, okay. Well, I guess, yeah. I think back in the days, the US was one of the countries with the most computers, actually, right?
Yeah, but we had AOL Canada and other countries
Mm.
also. They were providers of broadband internet in many, 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 many places.
Mm.
It's just the internet was invented in the US, so.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I have also a story about the Nigerian prince scam.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually predates email,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy to me. It started around the late 18th century. The roots of the scam trace back to the Spanish prisoner scheme, where fraudsters sent letters claiming that a wealthy prisoner needed help to escape, promising a large reward in return. So victims were asked to provide money upfront for bribes or legal fees. And of course, there was no prisoner and the reward never came. So you just sent that money and never heard back. Mm.
As long
Yeah,
as
so
humans have existed, humans have been scamming. Got it.
it's honestly it's amazing. And people fell for that. It's also crazy. Well, back in the days they didn't have security and cybersec podcasts to warn them about this stuff. It was easy to be a scammer back in the days because you couldn't trace anybody back, right? Um, so 1970s and 80s, as global communication expanded, variations of the Spanish prisoner scheme spread, particularly in West Africa. And the scam became strongly associated with Nigeria due to the country's history of economic instability, which led some individuals to exploit international networks for fraud. So then we transition to email, where the birth of the Nigerian prince trope actually came to be. So early 90s, with the advent of email, the scams transitioned from postal letters and faxes to the digital space, enabling scammers to reach far more victims at virtually no cost. And this Nigerian prince narrative or this archetype became popular during this time. So the scam often claimed that a wealthy individual or royal was seeking assistance to transfer funds out of the country due to political turmoil or other crises. And this email then allowed scammers to cast an incredibly wide net, relying on the email and the small percentage of recipients who would actually respond. And then I have another really interesting case from the 2000s because email, I think a lot of the times how we associate like scammy emails and stuff is that, oh, if you click on something, you're going to get a virus. Like at least that's back in, when I got my first computer. And I think a lot of our parents still, refer to like my mom is often like, is this a virus? And I'm like, it's been such a long time or I've almost, like, forgotten about, like, computer viruses because it almost seems like it's not a thing anymore, and I think that's partially because I'm using a MacBook.
Yes, I was gonna say. Yeah,
Mm.
yes. Mostly that. They malware is still a thing, especially on Microsoft. And still most of the global population uses Microsoft devices. We are in a bubble. Marketers
Yes.
are Mac people, but um, yes, it is
That's
still a
why we
thing.
have more elaborate scams targeting us.
Well, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's a very, like, legendary case from the early 2000s that started actually from the Philippines. Mailboxes around the globe were filled with messages titled, "I love you." And the message body simply said, "Kindly check the attached love letter coming from me." And those who opened what they thought was a harmless text file unleashed a worm that did damage to their devices. Um,
What
so
was
I think 2000, it was, yeah, exactly like the spring of 2000, like the Y2K had passed. Everybody figured that actually the world didn't end at year of 2000, but then they got this worm. And I think what was actually interesting to me is that the definition between like a virus and a worm. Sometimes people call this I love you uh, thing as a virus. And I just kind of want to, again, distinguish what is a virus and what is a worm. So a virus actually requires a host file or program to spread and user interaction. So either opening an infected file or clicking a link. The speed of spread is usually slower for a virus, and the intention is to corrupt or modify files, damage data, or make a system unusable. Whereas a worm can spread independently without needing a host file. The speed of spread is really rapid, and it focuses on spreading quickly and widely across networks, and it's used as a delivery mechanism for ransomware or spyware. So what happened with this worm, with this love letter worm, is that um, if you did like open this text file, it started spreading mass emails to other users. So it's not that somebody was like forwarding this email to you; it was doing it independently by going through your like contacts. And so it's built on a Visual Basic script. So first, the worm would inflict damage on the local machine. So it was overwriting random files, including Office files and image files. Then it copied itself to all addresses in the Windows address book used by Microsoft Outlook, allowing it to spread much faster than any previous email worm. And the love bug showed how to get spam to send itself. And that with a cleverly designed virus or bug that preyed on human psychology and technical failings, malware could rack up enormous numbers of victims. So the outbreak was estimated to have caused about between 5 to 9 billion in damages worldwide dollars. And within 10 days, over 50 million infections had been reported. And it is estimated that 10% of internet connected computers in the world had been affected. And it cost an estimated between 10 to 15 billion American dollars to remove the worm from computers, which is insane. And the guy himself, he was a 24-year-old dude from the Philippines. He actually never got prosecuted because back in the days, the Philippines did not have any laws or regulations, related to these internet malware items. So they did put in like laws after this whole incident happened, but they can't persecute him in retrospect after that law came out. So this guy is just walking around free after all of the chaos that he caused.
I've listened to quite a few interviews with some of the early coders that have made some scripts or whatnot that have been used in scams, and it's still kind of murky as to how can you prosecute, because um, some of them like built some things that can be used to get access to computers, but they personally have not been using it for malicious purposes. Unfortunately, well, fortunately, like the good side of like, coders kind of share their code a lot of the time, and there's a lot of open source stuff, and there's stuff you can find on the internet, and um, it's always that kind of like weird like dilemma. If somebody creates something, but ultimately, like, is it the maker of the gun that should be prosecuted, or is it the person holding the gun that should be prosecuted, right? And so it's like, if you make the thing and then you make it available, that right now, like, I mean, it's not really their fault if somebody uses that badly. Obviously, this person's different, but it's still, we're still in a place like legislation wise, like who is responsible for different, you know, things that harm people? Are social media
Yes.
companies responsible when their platform is being used for scams? At the moment, no. But obviously, people are thinking that we need to revisit those things. So
Oh yeah,
a lot of
social
people
media
are
platforms, they have the resources to come out clean out of everything
for now.
for now.
Let's see. But yeah,
I don't have a lot of hope. I mean, have you seen that video that Mark released with T-Pain?
no, I don't. I don't want.
He was like rapping. What was it? I don't remember.
Wait,
It was
what?
something
Mark was rapping?
Yes.
No.
Have you not noticed like his image change?
Yes, his rebrand. I saw that.
His rebrand, carefully, meticulously done by a PR agency, where he's anymore not seen as a cold reptilian bot, but he's suddenly a cool dude with these golden chains. He has a tan. He has these like curly hair. He wearing swaggy t-shirts and proclaiming,
Mark dead.
"Oh, I would love to have that episode."
Anyway,
Suddenly, my Instagram account is banned and blocked.
yeah. Anywho, side quest over.
Let's talk about stats.
How prevalent are these scams? Do we expect that nobody gets caught?
I'm pretty sure that a lot of our listeners, they are pretty maybe internet savvy, so very likely that most of our listeners have not been caught by any of these scams. But
Okay, so
the
this is
numbers
what I
show.
yes, this is what I hear from people. Oh, I won't get caught. I'm not that stupid. Okay, let me make something clear. It is not about being smart or stupid. These people are getting more and more sophisticated in scamming you. It is really hard to tell the really good scams. Okay, so let me make this clear. It is not about your level of intelligence. Anybody can get caught. Okay, these are professional scammers. This is all they do all day. Okay, so making sure anybody can get caught. Everybody thinks it's not going to be me until it's you. And then unfortunately, people still feel embarrassed and ashamed. And so they don't say. So all the numbers that we're actually sharing, there's a lot of stuff and that are not included. These are very conservative numbers because there are still people that will not go to the police. There's probably way more than have been recorded. That's my side note.
Yes. Don't be ashamed to admit
No.
that you've gotten scammed, guys.
We're here to help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Listen to us. Let's talk about the volume of scam emails because there's a lot. So in 2020 alone, approximately 45, well, almost like 46% of all emails sent were spam.
But spam and scam are different.
Yes.
So spam is unsolicited mass emails, right? Scams are scam emails are meant to like swindle you out of your money, basically, or something.
But just the amount of like spam, because think about it, there are email chains where you send like one word to your boss and you maybe passive aggressively like CC another manager in there. Like those emails can go on for like ages. And still, nearly half of all emails that were sent were spam.
Yeah. And those are not technically spam, right? So spam are just like mass emails that are not, yeah. Half emails are spam. So of those, there's a lot that can be scammy.
I also found a stat that Google blocks around 100 million phishing emails daily, which
That's a lot.
the vast scale of these malicious attempts. It's crazy.
The worst is that those are the ones that get filtered out. There are still plenty that make it to your spam inbox. So the ones that Google blocks don't ever make it in front of a human. Okay. There's still more that end up in your spam inbox, and there's still others that end up in your actual inbox because the scammers are trying and adapting their ways of getting past the email filters. So not even the filters you might put as a user, the filters that Google or Microsoft or whatever, they put also filters to make sure that nothing even gets to your spam, right? And so they're finding ways. So the most recent stuff that they've been doing is not including links necessarily, not including necessarily attachments, including links behind QR codes, because as of a few years ago, even the QR codes would be passed through no problem. So, if the rules are in the filters that, okay, if there's a link and this person, like the domain is already flagged or whatever, then they'll block it. Well, then they're going to use QR codes instead, right? Or they'll change the attachment, type because then, certain types are going to be blocked and not others, and etc. And so other things that they're using, and this we saw within the past few weeks. One way that email filters will block stuff that looks suspicious is if the domains don't match. So if there's like the sender domain, the reply to, like stuff is suspicious, then they're gonna block it. So if the domain has been already flagged as being phishing, then they might start blocking it. So what they're doing is they're using redirects for the actual like email domains. So recently got a tip from a friend. She got an email that seemed to be coming from Meta HR. There was no link really in the email. It was meant to be like a recruitment email back and forth. It passed directly into her inbox, right? And I looked through the email file, and turns out they were using an Eventbrite redirect domain to hide their actual domain where it was being sent from. And so the only way you could tell that it was actually Eventbrite, because it hides the email when you look at it, especially on mobile, right? You only see the name. The name was still like Meta HR or whatever. The logo was the Eventbrite logo. And then when I actually went to look what the email was, it was like campaign.eventbrite.com or something.
Wow.
And so it passed the filters. The domain was safe. Eventbrite is a safe domain, right? So it passed all the filters. It made it into her inbox. And obviously she was like, well, this is obviously very sus. Like, this is not real. But there's a lot that still passes because they will find very creative ways. So 100 million phishing messages a day are blocked from being seen by everybody. Can you imagine how many still pass?
Yeah. Yeah, because they're so advanced. That's actually so crazy.
Yeah. And it changes all the time. So you still need to be very vigilant.
You should be vigilant because there's an actual monetary loss attached to all of these scam emails. So in 2021, global losses due to phishing attacks amounted to $44.2 million, with an average loss of $136 per victim. That's actually a lot, considering how many scammy emails we've gotten in our lifetimes, and we've never fallen for that. And you have 44 million that they amounted to, and how many like don't fall for it, and then you still have like $100 something per victim.
Those have been reported. This was in 2021. By 2022, the FBI says that they have had reported $10 billion of losses.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it goes fast. And when we're looking at only a few hundred per like victim, that's the average, right? So, and those are the ones that actually
They actually report it. Yeah.
yes. Most of them, it's much more. There are many that can be, uh, kept secret, or they don't necessarily want to disclose. So in terms of corporate phishing in 2022, the average corporate loss was $4 million per breach.
Holy shit.
Yeah. This is
Wow.
from the IBM Cost of Data Breaches report. And so so those are the big ones, right? The problem that I'm seeing mostly is that the big ones, the data breaches, the cost is quite big. And again, the cost of a breach isn't just what you end up losing to the scammers. It's the reputational damage you need to fix. It's the systems you need to everything you need to actually like mitigate afterwards. There's a lot to a data breach. That's not just, oh, we lost some money from the actual the one breach, right? There's more to that cost. Now, the issue is that of all those billions of dollars that are being lost, most of the bigger corporate victims, um, they can manage that.
Yeah.
But they're fine, right? And they're the ones that were breached. And so, what we're seeing, the people that are the most vulnerable, they end up losing less in terms of like dollar amounts, but it can ruin their life.
Yeah, like imagine losing your life savings.
Your life savings, like your whole retirement fund, like some of these people, like, are businesses. Like, if it's a family-owned business and, like, you get breached, you might lose literally everything. You've lost your whole business.
And it's the small businesses actually that are most at risk because they do not have IT department.
No.
They do not have a specialized data security person. Like they're kind of these like DIY their own like little business if there's like 2-3 employees there.
And the problem is they think that they're not going to get targeted, but they are targeted. And the thing is that even if somebody isn't targeting your business, they are targeting normal people. And so if a person gets breached, they might have access to your business systems somehow, some way. And then that puts your business at risk. And so it gets very murky as to, okay, yeah, I'm too small to be targeted. No,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately.
Oh man, it's scary out there. So let's
So you were
about yeah.
actually you were actually talking about spam emails. So half of emails that are sent are spam. 2022 and 3 reported phishing attacks annually was over almost 5 million reported phishing attacks.
And these are reported.
Reported phishing attack.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So if we're looking at if half of the emails are spam, and 5 million of emails annually are phishing, that's a lot of percent when you think about it. Like,
Well, it's
that's a
cheap,
huge
right?
percentage.
There is like almost at no cost, you can like mass spam people.
That means that these emails landed in somebody's inbox, maybe spam folder, but most likely inbox.
Gotcha.
So those were the ones that passed all of the filters. So what did Google? We said Google blocks 100 million phishing messages daily,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay. Well, 4 million of those annually still make it to the inbox and are being reported. So that means that people spotted them. Doesn't include the ones that are not spotted and not reported.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's a lot that are still coming through. It's enough that it's a huge industry. There's so much money being made off of these scams.
So, as a cybersec expert, would you say it's best if you do receive a phishing email? Some people just delete the email because they're like, "Oh, it's a scam," whatever.
Yeah.
Is it better to just delete it, or is it better to mark it as spam?
Mark it as phishing. So the email client, so whether you use Gmail or Outlook or whatever, you can mark it as spam and phishing separately. Mark it as phishing, so that Google will now know. The problem is that typically the same kinds of phishing emails or scam emails are being sent to communities like as a whole. So, for example, you might get very similar ones within an organization, even if it's in your personal email. For example, if you have your personal email on your LinkedIn and you're linked to your company, then they might be able to scrape the emails of the employees and then they'll send it to the personal email or whatnot. So the problem with just deleting it or even just marking it as phishing is that it might tell Google or Microsoft that it's phishing, but it doesn't tell others in your circles that, hey, this is going around. So one of the best methods to make sure that you don't get breached or caught or whatever is early intervention, right? So in a small business, something that that you can do is if you report early, and the stats are that the earlier that you catch it, the most likely that you'll prevent a breach, but it's very quick. You need to catch them really, really quickly. So for example, a company that has maybe, between 300 and 400 people, let's say there's spear phishing or just, phishing attack that happens and it targets the less techie people in the company, sales, marketing, whoever, right? There might be half of those employees that are in that category. If somebody reports it to their IT, then IT typically will be able to either remove the email from everybody else's inbox before anybody else clicks, or if they can't do that because of whatever, privacy reasons or whatnot, they can at least warn anybody else that may have gotten it, right? And so then kind of prevent the maybe possibility that somebody wasn't paying attention, right? So kind of having that open line of communication. Hey, I got this like scam email. Like, y'all need to keep an eye out, delete it, right? That happens within small businesses, medium-sized businesses, big businesses too, but like, if you don't have any tool to figure that out. But it also happens within families, right? Because if for whatever reason, you get a thing and the reason why you got it was because some of email list of some sort, then anybody else who was also in that list also got it. And somebody in that list might be more vulnerable on getting caught. So actually talking about it with your community, with friends, family, whatever, and actually saying, hey, this is going around, this is a scam, is really important because they will trust that like, oh, I also saw that. I thought it might have been legit. Unfortunately, so many of those still go through. By the time it hits a human's eyes, chances are like they're going to be pretty sophisticated, at least technically, that they passed all the filters. So it can be really hard to tell, especially if you don't know. So making sure that we kind of talk about those things, and we tell our loved ones like, hey, this is a scam that's going around. Not to make anybody paranoid, but just to make sure that they don't get caught.
Normalize talking about scams.
Yeah.
No, it's absolutely fair because I again saw this stat that in 2021, 320,000 and more internet users fell victim to phishing attacks, which accounts to half of all cybercrime victims that year. And another stat that I found is that in a 2021 survey, it indicated that 68% of UK adults had been contacted by potential scammers, equating to approximately 35.8 million people. That's a lot.
It is.
That's crazy. And that's again, it's people who probably understood that this was a scam. Like, I'm pretty sure that anyone with an email has been targeted by scammers. It's just that not everyone is aware or is reporting these scams.
And those are the ones that are like obvious enough that you can tell. Because there are plenty that are not obvious and that you can't tell, If you're wondering if you are, in a demographic that can be targeted, the answer is yes.
Anyone with an email. If you have an email, we're gonna be targeted.
Yeah. But just, for kind of a bit more context, I guess, the inheritance scams, usually the victims, so not the targets, the victims end up being more in, what we would call maybe boomer or, Gen X, late Gen X right now, so 50 and up or whatnot. The average loss, though, goes from a few thousand to over 10,000 per victim. This is stats from the FTC. It's quite a wide age group. We're not talking about people with dementia. We're talking about people that are still working, but these might be people that might not be aware that these are still happening, or they might be a bit more sophisticated and whatnot. The those are on an individual level, but in terms of like, for example, romance scams, those happen all age groups, but especially in the similar age group, 50 something and up. But the total losses, FTC claims that there's over $1 billion a year in losses in romance scams. So those are the ones that go back and forth and, get them to, oh, I need this, I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to, and they think they have real relationships with people, unfortunately. And really, it just comes down because some of these people are just lonely. They've lost their life partner, or they just don't have anybody anymore. Their kids or whoever are not really in contact and they live alone. And so they're looking for, so what's the solution? Like, keeping in touch with people really helps them not fall for those romance scams, and just like making sure that our loved ones are actually not lonely. It's so sad, but that's what happens,
Yeah, we humans, we just crave connection. And I would say that I've seen online like some of these like screenshots of like how people have been, the interactions that they've had with scammers. I mean, obviously also thinking about the Tinder swindler, the documentary. One other one I recently saw on Netflix is called My Dear Bobby or something. I think it's called that way. And it was again about a a scammer creating a ton of fake Facebook profiles, and she was scamming a woman, making her think that she's in a relationship for like at least like 7 years. And there's been a lot of like people commenting like, "Oh, how was she so dumb? Like she never saw the person or the guy in person."
She did.
How we
I watched the
No,
same one.
well, she did, but because so it was a real person, but
Yes.
his accounts
Yes.
were like replicated by a scammer. So
By
that
her cousin. It was her
Yeah,
cousin.
well, hold on.
Insanity.
I have to
I saw it.
because you spoiled it for somebody probably.
Spoiler alert. You can put that at the beginning. Spoiler alert. It was her cousin. I don't care. They should have watched it already. Whatever.
Yeah, but the point is that there's a lot of victim blaming in situations like that, and it's like it's never the fault of a victim that they got scammed. Like, let's be clear, it's never your fault or somebody else's fault that they were dumb or anything else that people are saying. It can happen to anyone. And I think that's kind of a segue into maybe the next feature or kind of like topic about AI and how that is helping scammers a lot. I would say that, when I started in marketing, like I would as well get these scamming emails, but they were like so evidently a scam because there were a lot of typos. The comms were like a mess. It was like bad English that these emails were containing. So I was like, yeah, this is 100% a scam. Like I have no, doubts about this. But more recently, um, first of all, the spam filters are letting them through. But I would also say, like, I would get these emails and I'm like, I'm sitting there and I would consider myself like moderately like tech savvy. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm not sure if this is a scam or not. And I would say that, AI, obviously, it has brought us, with amazing tools that help us in our daily lives, but it also is helping scammers to do their evil deeds.
Mm-hmm. And keeping that in mind, only 17% of phishing attempts get detected. So that means that they were terrible. Those were the ones that could be detected. There are plenty that go undetected because they are that good. And so you can imagine that, or they're bad and they're not reported, sure, but there are plenty that are good enough that they go undetected, right? So how do you not get caught? How can you protect yourself? How can you protect your loved ones? How can you protect your business? The advice that I'm about to give is for the non-cybersecurity person, right? The people that are not necessarily the most tech adept. So don't feel like this is unreachable for you. If you know how to use a computer and you know how to use an email, like you should be able.
If you're listening to this podcast, you probably can.
Yes.
So this is all of you listeners.
Yeah. So make sure that learn how to use your email filters. That's for one thing. Those can be done yourself. All email providers will have some kind of custom filters you can do yourself. If you don't know how to do,
sorry. Yeah, exactly. I kind of wanted to go there. Or if you don't know how to do it, ask your dedicated IT person, aka your child.
well, your kid,
always
a
the kid.
friend. It's all usually the kid, but it could be, it could be a friend, it could be a cousin, it could be, a colleague that knows more. But learn about, the custom filters that you can put in, right?
It's always the kid. Shout out to my mom.
Oh my God, seriously, right? Why did we build Fishery? To make sure that I don't have to deal with this shit anymore. Okay, love my parents. But anywho, so and this unfortunately for maybe our parents' generation is a bit harder, but passwords and multi-factor authentication. If you can't figure that out for yourself, please ask somebody for help. Get a password manager. Make sure that you have unique passwords and complex passwords, the password managers will automatically create them for you. You don't need to remember them. You remember one, your master one, that's it, right? And set up multi-factor authentication and make sure that you have different ways of accessing your stuff, right?
Yes, if your password is 12345, go and change it now.
It's the most common password, believe it or not.
Or password 123.
Yes.
I swear I will go and hack your email right now.
If you
If you have that password, I promise you I will hack it.
Yeah. And then a few things in terms of the less technical things, right? Don't click links that you can't check. If somebody calls you from an organization, tell them that you'll call them back, hang up, find their number, and then call back another number. Check who the email sender is, the actual email address. Stay aware of the common tactics. Stay aware of what's happening. The common latest trends and whatnot. Don't share your passwords.
Quick note on the calls is that calls or number spoofing is a thing. So even if why you should check the organization, like their website or whatever, is because people spoof the number, which means that they use someone else's number that will be displayed when you're receiving the call. So even if you call back on the same number, somebody might pick up and they're like, who is this? Why are you calling me? I never called you. Is because that person actually does not know that their phone number has been used in the spoofing thing. So again, don't just call back, go to the website, see what the organization like official phone number is and comms are, and use that.
Yeah. So yes, don't share your passwords. Don't give too much, personal details online, obviously. Make sure that your social media is actually like private enough. You might forget that your Facebook profile is, public because you set it up when you were 15 or whatever. Make sure that you don't, link that kind of stuff. Obviously we're both kind of active on social on different platforms, but try not to film anything in front of your house. Or, make sure that when you are kind of sharing things that may be a bit personal, that there's nothing that's really identifiable.
Yeah, don't dox yourself.
No,
Or you can also you can what is like if you really want to talk about you being on a holiday, wait until you're back from the holiday and then post in retrospect because you don't want to tell like I don't know, maybe you have thousands of followers and your profile is open that hey, I'm on a holiday right now and there's nobody home.
in terms of work safety, make sure that you keep your team aware of what to do, what not to do, the basic stuff. Make sure that you have a password manager at work. Make sure you have a way for people to safely report anything suspicious to IT. Because just reporting through Gmail doesn't report it to your team. It just reports it to Gmail, right? So make sure there's a way, and it's not a screenshot. That doesn't work. That's not good enough, right?
But yeah, just normalize asking if you see something, say something.
If you think you've already been caught, change your passwords, obviously. Call your bank if you think that your bank account has been compromised. File a police report if you've actually lost money. Unfortunately, if you haven't been caught yet, but you've been kind of like halfway through kind of the scam, the police can't do much, but you can still let them know so that they have the details of what's going on. But the main thing is like, don't panic. We've heard this. Our lovely CTO buddy, don't panic. Don't feel ashamed. Ask for help. And just to prevent anything, to happen later, make sure that you double check, whatever credit bureaus, theft identity, talk with IT or whatever else. But the main thing is like stop access to any funds and try to prevent, future breaches or future damage and safeguard your personal information. So that's basically it.
Amazing. So yeah, I guess the takeaway for this episode is stay vigilant, stay sus, and don't panic.
Stay slightly paranoid. That's okay. Just a bit. Not too
In
much.
this time and age, honestly, best idea or best advice out there, be paranoid because you never know.
And if you have any examples, any stories, please let us know. Send us sound bites. We want to see some real scams in the wild. Our website is isthislegitpod.com. Send us an email at info@isthislegitpod.com and tell us your stories. Send us some sound bites. And if you have cool stories, we might actually include you in a future episode.
Or if you want to tip us about an ongoing scam, that would be greatly appreciated. We love to investigate this stuff. All right.
Talk to you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Dear listeners, please note that the views and opinions in this episode, like all episodes of Like Is This Legit, do not reflect the official position of the podcast and are the hosts and guests' subjective opinions and quoted allegations. The content from each episode of Like Is This Legit should not be taken for indisputable fact and should be viewed as an educational starting point for listeners. All content shared by our hosts, guests, and sponsors are their own opinions and are not meant to defame or misrepresent any business, group, organization, individual, anyone, or anything. Just don't scam people. Okay? Okay.